Now we're into ring modulation. This is boatloads of fun. A ring modulator is actually an elaborate VCA. It can actually be used as a standard VCA if you're running short on one. So let's figure out how to do this here. First thing you're going to do is, unlike the patches with the sample and hold, we're going to actually track from the keyboard. So take your pitch output and bring it into the 1 volt per octave input, or tracking input, of VCO3. Then we're going to use VCO3 because it has the oscillator aid, which is handy, and take the, whichever one of these is the positive output, I forget, it's that one on that side, and you're going to plug this into the ring modulator input X, and then in parentheses AC. That means it's AC coupled. That means it will accept an alternating signal going both positive and negative. Now take the X plus Y output, and you're going to plug it into, I'm going to use, just for the heck of it, VCA4 input. There's 2 cables there, so you can get 2 different sounds happening at once, or a bass line and a melody, all kinds of stuff. Then start off with your initial gain here, somewhere in that area. Now, your initial settings, put this about 8-foot range, right in the middle. For the oscillator aid, set this to sine, and volume all the way up. The volume on this will never change. Then you're going to come down here, and you're going to set it exactly the same. So set VCO3 and 4 with their oscillator aids exactly the same. For the ring modulator, turn X all the way up, and then turn the other 2 controls all the way down. Now with this up, you won't be hearing anything at this point. Turn up the Y offset, and you will hear the sine wave coming out of here. Play some keys on the keyboard, confirm it's tracking the keyboard. What the Y offset does is it acts like the initial gain on a standard VCA. When you turn this up, it's not what you think. It doesn't let the Y output through. It lets the X output through. So far, so good. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take an output from the VCO4 oscillator aid positive output into the Y input alternating. Now turn up the Y level all the way, and you will hear ring modulation. It'll be droning, never stopping, but play some keys up and down the keyboard, and then as you play and listen, change the range switch here of the Y oscillator. If you want to mess with the X oscillator as well, go ahead, but normally leave that in 8-foot, but change this, and what it's doing is multiplying the 2 sine waves together, and you're hearing only the sum and difference. You're not hearing the original signals. That will sound something like this. I'm going to turn up the Y offset, and we hear the sine wave from this oscillator. And nothing from this one. Now I turn the Y offset down, and I turn the Y level all the way up. That's ring modulation. So kick Logic into record and just capture a few seconds of that. Nothing fancy, just so I can go, yep, you did it, check. Now on to part 2. What you're going to add for part 2 is an envelope generator to modulate the final VCA, so it doesn't keep playing until you play a key. So, very simple. Take your gate output and run it into a mult, because you're going to send it other places later. So let's send this down here to this envelope generator, and then come out of this envelope generator into the CV input of the VCA. So now, let's talk knob settings. For the envelope generator, let's start at 0, 0, 10, and about 4 on the release. 0, 0, 10, and somewhere around 4. And then you want to change this final VCA, shut the initial gain all the way off, and turn the control voltage sensitivity all the way up. Now, when you hit a key, it lets the sound through, and when you don't hit a key, it doesn't. Now, go play a couple of notes, and then experiment with turning up the attack for the envelope generator, maybe, up to 4 or something, and listen to what that does. It might sound like this. And I actually backed the release down to about 3. Then turn the attack time on that envelope generator up to 3 or 4 and listen. Interesting sounds. Turn the attack back down, end up with a sound about like that. Record a couple of seconds of that, would ya? That was Ring Modulator 2. This is 2A. It's no different patches. It's just what I want you to do is go here and try different waveforms, both on the X oscillator and the Y, and try different ranges, particularly on the Y oscillator. You'll hear some sounds like this. I'm not going to make you record any of that, but if you want to learn this stuff and you want to be able to design sounds, and you're also going to be putting sounds to a video, it would be good to sit there and spend 2 or 3 minutes and just change the octaves of both your carrier and modulator, essentially, and change also the waveforms. And you'll notice if you set both X and Y to complex waves like saws, it really quickly starts just becoming noise because you have so many frequencies. So next will be Ring Modulation 3. Ring Modulation 3. Now you're going to be glad you multed the gate output, because you're going to take, whoops, that's a knob setting. You're going to take another output from that mult, which is your gate signal, right? You're going to plug it into another envelope generator. Then you're going to come out of the envelope generator and into input number 1 of the 526 mixer. You're going to come out of the positive output of the 526 mixer and into the exponential adjustable input of VCO4. Settings. Why don't you start the exponential input here at about 3? And let's start. Oh, I actually marked the wrong envelope generator the first time. Sue me. Yeah, I know. Look, I'm doing the best I can here. So this envelope generator is for your final VCA. I hope you realize that. Okay, now envelope generator 2, which will come into the mixer and then modulate the frequency of this oscillator. Let's set that around 0, 3, about 5 on the sustain, and about 3 on the release. 0, 3, 5, 3. And then obviously turn channel 1 up and turn it up all the way, and you'll hear some interesting sounds sort of like this. Okay, I have it patched, but I have channel 1 on that 526 mixer turned off, so this is the sound as it was. And here it is with the envelope generator going to this VCO. Adjust the parameters. Listen to what they do. Turn up the attack maybe to 4 or so, or 5 on envelope generator 2, and watch what happens. If you press it and immediately release a key, no change. But if you press and hold a key, interesting, huh? Remember to set the attack on envelope generator 2 back to 0. Okay, and you will have recorded a couple of seconds of that one. So the next thing we're going to do is make a modulation matrix that is controlling the Y oscillator. Right now, you've got an envelope generator coming into this mixer coming here. Now let's do something else. Let's make sure I'm choosing a cable. Let's take the sine wave output of VCO5, which is acting as an LFO in this case, and come into VCA input 1 here. For this one, you're going to take the output of VCA1 all the way at the bottom there and bring it into the 526 mixer channel 2. Settings. Set VCO5 to low range and set the speed, I don't know, somewhere around whatever that is, 3 o'clock on the clock dial for now. It's a little bit quick for an LFO, but that's what you want. And over here, you're going to turn this initial gain up because this isn't being modulated yet, so just turn this all the way up. Now what's happening is that you have an LFO coming into a VCA that's only acting as a volume control, sending full volume out here. So now what you do is turn off channel 1 in this mixer so you're no longer hearing the envelope generator. Turn on channel 2 all the way up and listen. You might hear something like this. Now go to the 526 mixer channel 2 that's controlling the amplitude of that LFO and bring it way down. Now turn on channel 1 on the 526 mixer so you've got the envelope generator and the LFO. Now take the output, sine wave output of VCO5 and shift it over to the pulse output. Goof around with the settings, have fun, try different things. Try changing the rate of this a little bit. Try different waveform outputs from VCO5. Try different amounts of channel 1 and channel 2, and even invert. Use the channel 1 as an attenuverter. Hear what happens when you've got an LFO coming in here, and the channel 1 is feeding an envelope generator through, and turn it up positive, but then turn it way up negative, and hear how it changes what's happening. Please record a little bit of that. Check, and as always, put a marker in. So I look at your program, mark, check, check, check. All right, that was ring modulator 4, and this is ring modulator 5. You ready for this? This is fun. And if you don't think so, lie. You love it. You've got a gate here coming out of this mult, so let's go ahead, take another output, and let's come next door right now into the gate input of this voltage controllable envelope generator. Take the positive output of this and come into the control voltage input of VCA1. So now let's talk about knob settings. The first thing with this envelope generator is make sure that this bottom left control is turned all the way up, because that's almost like a how much is this whole thing gonna work unless you've got something plugged in. The settings of the other knobs here on the left side are irrelevant. Don't worry about it. This is your time, and something to notice about this if you haven't, this module is set up the way Bob Moog made envelope generators. So it's not ADSR, it's ADRS, because Moog said time 1, time 2, time 3, and then sustain. Don't get confused by that. So let's set this, let me see. Let's set attack at 0. Let's set decay around halfway up, right there. Let's set release at 0 and sustain around 3. Then over here on the VCA, you need to turn your initial gain for VCA1 all the way down and turn the control sensitivity for VCA1 all the way up. Sounds something like this. I'm going to back down the sensitivity on the 526 mixer channel 2. Back all the way up. Now try taking the attack time and turning it up to about 2 o'clock on the clock dial. You have to hold the key down. Turn the attack back to 0. turn the release third knob up to around 2 o'clock. It's a lot more touchy because of the shape of the curves in this. Now, turn both the attack up to about 4 and then play around with the release up around, when I say 4, I mean 2 o'clock on the clock dial. And then turn the release up about the same and move it around. Cool, huh? Now set your attack back to 0, your release back to 0, and we move on to the last one. Ring Modulator 5, this is Ring Modulator 6, and as you can see, it could go on forever, basically. What I'm going to suggest you do, scratch that, I want you to do this, is take a cable and plug it into the controller 1 output of the interface so that the mod wheel on the keyboard will send a voltage. Bring that over here to this mult, just to make it easy on yourself. And then let's start off taking an output here into, let's bring it down to exponential frequency in. And I can't put a knob marker in here because it's too crowded, but let's start off with the exponential variable knob setting at about 9 o'clock on a clock dial. Start there. Now what will happen is when you play and then move the mod wheel, you'll be controlling the speed of the LFO, like this. I'm going to change VCO5 back to a sine wave, see what that sounds like. I'm going to go back to a pulse wave. I'm going to turn the exponential level up from 9 o'clock to about 11 o'clock. And I'm going to back the frequency down a little bit so it's real slow. Record a little of that, and then here's the last thing. Check this out. Just unplug this. So this is the signal from the controller number 1, and plug it into the CV in of the envelope generator. So now when the mod wheel is down, this envelope generator isn't sending anything. Now the next part of this whole lab is that you're going to go and experiment with sample and hold and ring modulation and make sounds to a video. So I just want to ask you to try to come up with some things on your own. Now just consider this for a minute. I mapped out everything you've seen, but right now I'm just going to make this up as I go. Let's look in here and what you could possibly do. What we just did was we took this here. That's what we just did. We changed the controller 1 output from the exponential in over to the CV into the envelope generator. You could also control the speed. If you wanted to, think about this. You could take the pulse output here and feed it into an input of the pan fade module, and then take the sine wave out into input 2, and then put it into fade mode, and then this would come in here. So now sine wave and pulse wave into the Q111 pan fade, output of the pan fade into the VCA1 input. Now this knob will control the blend of sine wave to pulse wave. And if you brought in something like your mod wheel here, you'd be able to change it from sine wave to pulse wave. So look at this, and between the waveforms of your X and Y oscillators and the tuning of it, the type of waveform from your LFO, the speed of it, these envelope generator settings, and combining the different volume settings in the modulation matrix, you can make a lot of really interesting sounds. So that's what I want you to do now. Go and make some interesting sounds. And I know this has been long. Don't complain or I'll stack it up worse. and put the sounds to the video I gave you. Make it interesting.